I've signed a lease for a high-rise condo so that my parents, my sister's family, and we can all live together.
What? What's that about? Why would you do that without asking?
You said to spend money for the family, right? This is the right way to use my money. Oh, and if you have any complaints, we can just get a divorce. Haha.
The face of the husband who signed a lease on his own for a 3-household high-rise condo was more hideous than I had ever seen before. I'd often heard stories about family relationships deteriorating due to inheritance, but I never thought it would relate to us. My once kind husband seemed to have changed after inheriting a large amount of money. I can no longer stay with this person. Fine then, I'm okay with getting a divorce, but are you really okay with that?
Huh? What are you talking about? Of course I am. Uh-huh.
Fine. Don't come to me regretting later. A month later.
Please, I'm in trouble. Help me.
My husband panicking, asking for my help. I told you so, didn't I? That you'd regret it. And so the husband fell into hell. My name is Maggie. I'm turning 35 this year. My husband Scott and I are the same age. Scott and I were in the same tennis club at our university, which is how we became close. Initially, we were just friends, but as we spent time together striving and supporting each other, I was drawn to Scott's kindness and his optimistic nature, which I lacked. Scott seemed to be attracted to my solid and honest personality, and that's how our relationship started. Having started as friends, we were able to talk and act naturally around each other, like friends or lovers. On our 2nd anniversary, Scott proposed to me and we got married. A year into our marriage... Hey, Scott, it seems like I'm pregnant.
Really? Yes. I'm so happy. Seriously, thank you.
Saying this, he caressed my stomach and shed tears of joy, which made me tear up as well. And then our daughter Katie was safely born. 2 years after that, our son was born. We named him Ryan. Both kids grew up healthy, with Katie now 11 and Ryan 9. Our lives, which had been ordinary but peaceful, changed drastically after my father passed away, shortly after the month-long mourning period after his death. My mother had died 2 years prior, and my father, who loved her dearly, had been depressed with her loss. Then last year, I received a sudden call from the hospital saying my father had collapsed. Dad, are you okay? What happened?
Oh, I'm sorry, Maggie. It turns out I have cancer. I've been given about a year to live.
What? Cancer? No way. I was shocked and couldn't process the sudden news from my father.
I couldn't come to terms with it myself and hadn't been able to talk about it. I've actually known for quite a while now. I'm sorry to shock you, Maggie, but there's nothing that can be done about it now.
Dad. I didn't know what to say and just broke down in tears. Then just the two of us talked about my mother and recalled trips we took as a family. Crying and laughing, we had many conversations. It had been a while since my father and I had such an in-depth talk. After that, I took a year off work.
It's a tough time for both your dad and you, Maggie. Why don't you take a leave of absence from work? It'll allow you to spend more time with your dad.
But what about the living expenses and the kids?
Don't worry, I'll work more than ever and the kids are strong. They'll be fine.
Thanks to his encouragement, I was able to take the leave. My husband and kids would visit my father on weekends. He seemed genuinely happy talking with his son-in-law and grandchildren. That year passed and eventually my father succumbed to his illness. Watching my father weaken day by day was unbearable, but Scott was always there, reassuring me. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about anything at home. Spend as much time with your dad as you can. He took care of all household chores while I was at the hospital, allowing me to spend invaluable father-daughter time until the end. After my father passed away, we were engulfed in grief, proceeding with the wake and the funeral. Many people who respected my father attended the funeral. After the funeral, a man approached me.
Maggie, it's your uncle. Do you remember me?
He was my father's brother, my uncle, a smart man working as a lawyer. I remember him well from childhood. We used to go on family trips every year and had a lot of fun. He was very close to my father. Of course I remember. It's been a long time.
I'm so sorry for the loss. Your father asked me to discuss something important with you, but it's hard to talk about it here with so many people around. let's move somewhere quieter.
Something he asked you to discuss? Curious, I followed him to a private room to hear what he had to say.
Maggie, your father left behind an inheritance for you. There's a will stating that everything is to be passed on to you.
Apparently, my uncle had been entrusted with my father's will. My father must have thought that entrusting his lawyer brother was the best option. Inheritance? My father did that?
Yes, in fact, the inheritance amounts to $2 million.
$2 million? The sheer amount made me raise my voice in surprise.
Shh! Don't let others hear about this. You never know who might harbor resentment towards you. Money can drive people mad, in both good and bad ways.
Oh, I'm sorry. But why did my father have so much money?
Didn't you know? Your father was quite knowledgeable about real estate investment, mutual funds, and other investments. He studied a lot and accumulated his wealth.
Indeed, my father always urged me to study investment, and I had started investing as he suggested. I was surprised to learn how much it had grown. My father always said studying investment was important, but I never imagined he had amassed such a fortune. I'm really shocked.
It's understandable. And remember, only share the details of the inheritance with people you truly trust. Money can change people, remember that. Only tell those you truly trust.
As a lawyer, my uncle had seen many cases where sudden wealth led people crazy. He emphasized this point to me. After the funeral and the month-long mourning period, I decided to tell my husband about the inheritance from my father. I had heard stories about inheritances ruining family relationships, but I never thought it would apply to us. I trusted my husband more than anyone, so I decided to share with him. Little did I know what would unfold. About the inheritance I received from my dad, it's actually about $2 million.
$2 million?
My husband had the exact same reaction as me. He was speechless with surprise. And that makes sense. It's a significant amount of money after all. Yeah, it was quite a shock.
I see. It's definitely surprising, but it's money left by your father, so we have to use it wisely.
Right. Oh, and don't tell anyone, okay? I told you because I trust you, Scott.
Of course. There's no way I could talk about this to anybody.
Right.
But what should we use it for?
I felt a bit conflicted seeing my husband so happy about it. But my dad just passed away, so I can't really think about spending it right away.
Yeah, you're right. My bad.
My husband seemed a bit awkward and apologetic as he said that. Talking to my husband made me feel a bit better. Suddenly, having such a large amount of money, I was overwhelmed and didn't know what to do with it. I was hoping to consult with him and discuss our future plans together slowly. However, after that conversation, my husband's behavior began to change bit by bit. One day, he had a wallet I'd never seen before. Huh? Did you get a new wallet? It looks nice.
Right? This cost me $1,000.
What? $1,000? Isn't that too expensive?
Is it? It's normal, isn't it?
No, you never bought such things before. What's with the sudden change?
Well, we have $2 million now, so what's $1,000, right?
What? I was perplexed by his remark, which made it seem like he considered the inheritance $2 million entirely his own. Wait a minute, that money is for our children's future, or for our retirement, not for wasting on things like that.
What's the big deal if I buy something I like once in a while? Besides, who was it that supported you during your father's hospitalization?
Thank you for that time. It was a big help, but that's different, isn't it? Anyway, don't do such things on your own from now on.
Alright, I'll be careful.
He seemed sulky, but perhaps understood a bit, or so I hoped. However, about a week later, he started saying,
Maybe I should quit my job.
What? What are you saying now? I couldn't believe what he was suggesting.
We have $2 million, right? You took a break from work before. It's not a big deal. We can live off this for the rest of our lives without working until retirement.
$2 million is indeed a lot of money. However, for us, a couple in our 30s with 2 children to raise, it's not enough to quit working and live off for a lifetime. My husband strongly argued, citing my previous leave of absence and the household chores he took over while I was caring for my father. I wish I had never taken that leave. I regret letting him take over the household chores, even though he offered to do them. Such thoughts made me even angrier. Stop it! Didn't I say this before? The inheritance and that time are separate issues. Seeing my clearly angry reaction, my husband joked.
I'm just kidding.
However, he continued to make suggestions like,
let's move to a bigger house.
Or,
let's buy a new car.
And even suddenly asked our 5th grade daughter if she wanted to take the middle school entrance exams. Katie seemed confused by the sudden talk of middle school entrance exams. This can't continue. I was thinking about having a serious talk with my husband when, during my absence at work and while he had a day off, he took our daughter and son shopping and bought a large number of toys.
Mommy, look! Daddy bought these for us. Daddy said we could buy anything. Did something good happen between you and Daddy?
My daughter and son approached me with excitement. Looking at the receipt left on the table, it appeared he has spent about $1,000 in total, including a gaming console he had wanted. I was astounded. Seeing my husband get carried away after receiving $2 million, I decided it was time to have a serious conversation. Stop making sudden decisions about Katie's middle school exams, buying loads of toys for Katie and Ryan, and getting yourself a gaming console. Stop buying things recklessly.
Why not? I'm not buying recklessly. The kids are happy, so what's the problem? Besides, a car and a house are important for the family, right?
Katie had promised her friends to go to the same middle school, so it's natural she'd be confused by your sudden suggestion. They don't need so many toys. What if they start thinking we're rich and lose normal values? We only replaced the car 2 years ago, and our current house is more than enough. My husband wanted to spend the large sum of money we received to upgrade our lifestyle. He even brought home brochures for high-rise condos with rents over $10,000, proving his intentions. We didn't have an annual income of $2 million. We just happened to inherit my father's assets. If we followed my husband's idea to buy anything and everything, the money would quickly disappear. I was determined not to change our standard of living for our children's future, but my husband failed to understand my feelings.
Come on, it's okay to spend a little.
If we spend without planning, it'll be gone before we know it.
Maggie, you're always exaggerating.
I was utterly frustrated by my husband's carefree attitude. Although I had always found his optimistic outlook attractive, this time I was at my wit's end because we couldn't communicate. Just stop doing things on your own.
So what are we supposed to do with the $2 million? Just save it forever? That's a waste.
I'm not saying we shouldn't use it, but it's important money left by my father, and I want to use it wisely. I insisted that we use the money for our family and agreed to consult each other before making any decisions. I told my husband I didn't want to think about it anymore for now. He seemed quite dissatisfied. Even after that, he kept asking our daughter and son if they wanted anything or needed something, and I had to intervene each time. Even the kids started to feel uneasy about their father's recent behavior. A week later, my husband stopped talking to me, apparently upset that I had blown up at him for discussing money matters in front of the children. I regretted consulting him about the inheritance. I should have listened more to my uncle's advice. One day, a week after our discussion, my husband came home in a great mood and made a shocking statement.
I've signed a lease for an apartment in a high-rise condo so that my parents, my sister's family, and we can all live together.
What? Why would you do that without asking? It seemed my husband hadn't understood my feelings at all, which made me sad.
You said to use the money for the family, right? This is my way of doing it right. Oh, and by the way, if you have any complaints, I'm willing to get a divorce.
Seeing my husband declare he has signed a lease for a high-rise condo for 3 households, his face wore an ugliness I had never seen before. The idea of him signing a lease on his own and threatening divorce if I complained is unbelievable. Legally, that money is mine, not his. I never intended to use it all by myself, which is why I consulted him. But that didn't mean he could spend it without my permission. Despite telling him not to mention the inheritance to anyone, Scott had discussed it with his in-laws and siblings. I rushed to the spot where the bank book for the account holding the inheritance money was kept, only to find it missing. I felt a chill run through me. Looking over at Scott, he was smirking. The kind man I married seemed to have changed after getting his hands on the inheritance. Why did you take the bank book without asking?
You're making it sound so bad. We're a family, so it's not like it's without permission. What's yours is also mine.
Hearing those words, I felt my love for him go cold in an instant. Scott continued fiercely.
I've always thought this, but you wanted to spend all the money to yourself, didn't you? That's why you get mad when I use it. You're a terrible wife.
I never thought about spending it all myself. That's why I consulted you. Why do you always act on your own? That money is legally mine. Didn't we agree to discuss how to use it?
See? You do think of it as your money. That's why you don't want me to use it.
He began to berate me. At that moment, I was sure I could no longer live with this person. Fine then, divorce it is. Scott seemed to have said it just to threaten me and appeared a bit shaken.
Are you really okay with that? You won't be able to live in the high-rise condo alone, you know?
I had a suspicion. Scott spoke as if he had already purchased a home, but I suspected it was a lie. Are you sure about this? You'll regret it.
What? Why are you acting tough? I've got a high-rise condo, and I'll live with my sister and parents. No way I'll regret it.
Scott stated confidently. Then do as you please. Thinking I was mocking him, Scott furiously began packing his things. The next day he said,
I can't live with you anymore,
and left. That evening, after Scott had left, I immediately went to the bank. The money was all there. His claim of purchasing a home was indeed a lie. Even if Scott had the bank book, it was unlikely he could withdraw $2 million from an account in my name. My assumption was correct. I explained the situation without going into details at the bank, requested a temporary suspension of the account, and applied for a new bank book registration. Then, I discussed the situation with my uncle, a lawyer, and proceeded with the divorce proceedings. Later, I called my husband. Let's discuss property division, child support, and divorce.
Oh, fine. I've got the bank book anyway. If I can just contract the high-rise condo, that's all that matters. Haha.
Understood. The conversation progressed smoothly without any issues, as Scott was under the misconception he could easily purchase the high-rise condo. After getting him to fill out the divorce papers, I submitted them, and the divorce was finalized. A month later, Scott called. Wondering if he wanted to confirm the divorce, I answered.
Hey, what's the meaning of this?
He began desperately. What's with the sudden call?
I'm in trouble. Help me.
What? Scott was panicking, only repeating his plea for help. Eventually, he began to explain his situation.
I was told I can't use the inheritance money because the account had been suspended. They said the bank book is invalid. Why?
Well, the bank book that was supposed to be there is gone. I filed a loss report and had it suspended. I can't have someone using it without permission.
What? It's causing me trouble. The bank staff are suspicious of me. Say something for me.
That's why I suspended it. Because there are people like you trying to withdraw money without permission. Turns out I was right.
What? Now my parents have sold their house thinking they could live in a high-rise condo. They've moved into my sister's small apartment temporarily, thinking it's just until we move. Telling them now they can't live there is ridiculous.
You are really stupid, aren't you? Did you really think you could use money in my name to buy a high-rise condo without my permission? And your parents sold their house too? That's actually hilarious.
This is bad. Do something. Look, I'll even call off the divorce for you. How about it?
Call off the divorce? The divorce papers have already been submitted. We're strangers now. Don't be mistaken.
But Katie and Ryan would be happy if their dad came back, right? Come on, I was wrong.
Katie and Ryan recently said they're scared of how their dad has been acting. They don't like it. Plus, a father who said he didn't want custody as soon as he thought he had money? No thanks.
You're lying. What should I do? If this continues, I might get taken by the police. Help me out.
Over the phone, I could imagine my ex-husband's disappointment. Despite not wanting to make him a criminal, I decided to speak to the bank staff to clear things up for now. Scott was still not giving up on the $2 million, begging,
Please come back. I've reflected on my actions. Please come back and live in the high-rise condo with me.
Furthermore, according to my husband, his parents and sister's family, upon learning of the $2 million inheritance, had gone on to purchase large quantities of branded goods, already accumulating debt. They seemed to think it was no problem to be in debt since they believed they would receive money from my husband later. It's astonishingly naive thinking, and I'm appalled by it. You all are really stupid. I don't care whether you live in a cramped house or get in debt. It's none of my business. And if you bother me again, I'll report you to the police as a criminal trying to use my money without my permission.
I'm sorry. Really sorry. Just don't do that.
If you understand, then stay away from me and the kids for good. I hung up without waiting for a reply, not caring what became of my ex-husband and his family. For me, such things are utterly irrelevant. As for me, I moved to a new house with my children. It's a normal rental apartment, not a fancy high-rise condo. The children, sensing their father's growing irrationality, expressed no desire to see him. Regarding the $2 million inheritance, I transferred a portion into a separate account for my children's future and invested another part in mutual funds. I plan to continue living our normal, non-luxurious life for the sake of my children. As long as my children grow up healthy and happy, that's more than enough happiness for me. I hope to use this money when the time comes for them to attend college or get married.